everybody. Yes, I'm still here. We're on the final week of kind of destruction and construction. We have an elevator in and it's almost finished. It needs a floor in it. But the rest of the house that had got all ripped apart, well, that's still under destruction. But I needed to come and see you because I was going to do a few things, and I've been doing a few things, so I want to share them with you, and I kind of missed you. So here we are, and what we're going to do today is, I have two species orchids. They're minis, and a real mini. So this one was ordered quite a few years ago from the coast, and it was the only phalaenopsis they had because the Forest View Gardens, and they major in slipper orchids. And so I got this. It had two spikes and they had been trimmed off when I got them. And ever since, it has been a few years, this would come into bloom, the buds would fall off. Come into bloom, the buds would fall off. And I had read something on the internet that they liked lots of light, and so that's what I was giving it. Just like, okay, he has a video, there but not, or something like that. But anyway, here but not. Sorry. Anyway, he has a great video channel. He has lots of orchids, and he's a master. So he had one, and he had the same problem. So I thought, well, you know, they raise slipper orchids, so why are they going to have one complete temperate reason just for this other type? So I thought they must be raising them under the same condition as the slipper orchids. And I'm just surmising this, because why would they only have one phal and all slipper orchids? So anything I had read, they liked lots of light. So they've always been in the very front of the window, getting lots of light. And also, I potted it in this terracotta pot. And we all know that if you're in a humid area, you have terracotta. It dries quicker. It doesn't want to be dry. Slipper orchids like to be a little moister, and I think this does too. So my plan was to repot it. So that's what we're going to do today. And this is Phal Memoria Rettig. And it's still got a few little flowers. And no, I haven't cut them off yet. They're very long. I will be cutting them off. I'm going to repot it and probably trim it off and let it get reassociated. Because that's what I like to do. So it's been in this pot. Now, I went to the dollar store, and for $1.25 at the dollar store, you can get a traffic cone. And these ones are kind of neat because if you want to hang an orchid, there's 4 nice holes. You could just put a chain or a knot on the end of a string. You could hang them. And so what I did, I bought 3 of them because I'm thinking I might eventually hang some. So they're there. They're only $1.25 at our dollar store. So years ago I found this little stand, and I wanted to do something with it. What's it say on the made in Korea? You know, it's not anything fancy. I don't know what was in it because it came from a thrift store just like this. So I thought, okay, that fits quite nicely. So I can either hang it or I can put it in the stand. But for now it's going in the stand. And so Jack took it down and drilled 1/2-inch holes all over it. And then in the bottom. And then what I did is I sanded it really good. And then I put on I put on a coat of white stuff that you use before you paint. Come on, Carol, somebody help me with this. I'll get it in a minute. So, and then just that cheap, as soon as it dried, I put on that real cheap dollar store paint. And I never did a fancy paint job. Anybody can use this, but I did pick one color that was the color of the stand it was going to be in. And the rest, and I just threw it on. So it's nothing fancy. So, oh, gesso, gesso, gesso. I always use gesso. It's my painting gesso, but it does help paint stick to all kinds of real tough surfaces. And I really like to use it. So I put the gesso, then the dollar store paint, and then I use water-based Ferrithane on the surface. I put one coat. So there's the inside. There we are. So now we are going to take this out the pot. I have no idea what it looks like. I have not had it out of the pot. Now I wonder if I can be less messy with this. Just a minute. Okay. Here it comes. You know, if I planned things, it would be good, but trying to find a day when things aren't crazy. Doing the floor downstairs, so I'm kind of free. So Mom's locked in her room because she can't step on this stuff for a few hours. So I'll just put this cookie tray on this chair because I want you to see. And it's dry. Tomorrow's my watering day. I do halfway give all my small ones, and this especially, some extra water. But I'm sure it's going to be very dry. And I'm just going to dump it out. I'll let you see that in a minute. Okay, we'll see what we got. One thing with I had some, now that you see what was in the bottom. Okay, I had some rock in the very bottom, just plain rock, and then just bark. So I'll hold up the plant. One thing about bark, you're not going to get rot. If you're getting soft, mucky roots, then what do you know? You're watering too much, or you need a pot with more air holes that lets air out quicker. Now, if you have a lot of air holes in your plant, but you put the plant in another pot, make sure that pot has space around it so light can get in and into the air holes, and also air can circulate. So if you put it in a pot that's too tight, you're kind of defeating your purpose of letting that humidity and wetness out. So I didn't soak this first. This is how it looks. Now, some are real dry. I'm going to trim them off. And I'm going to put this in some water for a few minutes. Watering day tomorrow. It is dry. But I always go on the dry side. But this one has been drying too fast. So let me just put it in a little pot of water. Tim Hortons. We love our coffee. Okay, there's a pot of warm water. In it goes. We'll have another look at it. There you go. So I never did anything special this. You saw it how it was. Don't panic if it's too dry. It's quite happy, but not as happy as it should be. That's why I'm repotting it. I should, just for fun, unpot another one and see what it looks like so you can see the difference between, I'll pick one of a similar size and we'll see the difference between being in that terracotta pot and not. Because here, being drier in house and hotter summers, I think the plastic, all my plants in the plasticky pots, seem to do good, but I do like the bought ones too that have holes. But yeah, they seem to get that little, hold on to humidity a little bit better. So what I've done is I have started to, now if you're in a humid area, you don't have to do this. If you're in a dry area, because on the repot, what happens is we're finding a bit of a shock from too dry, and you don't know if you do your regular 1 weekly watering, the bark has not, because it's new, it's not holding on to the humidity as long. So there's more shock to your orchid. So when you start with new bark, I've started this now. I've been soaking it 3 days. I find it makes a big difference. And then I just do the weekly watering, where if you're putting it in dry bark, then you're going to end up having to give it an extra water. But most of the things you say, oh, when you repot it in bark, let it heal over. And I used to believe a lot of this stuff. And we live and learn. But patience, and I'm always learning too. And I learn a lot from you guys. So, I've got a stainless steel strainer here. And I'm just going to dump it in. Now, I got probably more than I need. Par for the course for me. And I'll just quickly rinse it off too, because there's always dust and... Hey Maggie. Hey Maggie. Oh, did you want to come and tell a story? Okay, we're just going to tell a little story for a minute. Come on. Okay, here's Maggie. Maggie's upset because she's locked in here and oh, all this is happening. And what happened, Maggie? There's 2 things that happened yesterday. All of a sudden she's limping. She won't walk on her front. She must have got bit by a bee. So she's limping and she's bad, worse than her mom. She's just such a wuss. Oh, and we felt so sorry for her. Well, by last night she was okay, but she got bit on her paw. But there was something else that happened I have to share. Now, they had to carry a lot of the huge big parts of the elevator all the way around the house. They're like steel things, and put them in the hole. And stuff is moved everywhere. Like this is the only room that's, I finally washed all the walls, everything in here, because the dust is everywhere. And I've got 3/4 of the living room washed and everything in it. So anyway, stuff was everywhere. And we don't know who did it, do we, Maggie? But you know that beautiful white wire? Okay, I'll go hold it up. Okay, I'm sure you can see from here. Where am I? You know this pot? Well, it had an orchid in it. And it was out of the pathway of the traffic, and it was out on the patio. But because there's a lot of stuff piled out there, something happened and it got knocked over. And that's why there's no orchid in right now, because orchid, oh. And it's the poor orchid that I potted in there because it had almost died. It had 2 leaves. It had lost all its leaves but 2. Quickly grew back 2 more. Then one day I was watering it and I had this oven on and it got its little leaf burnt. And then I'm thinking, where's that orchid? Because I mean, it stands up, you can usually see it. And there it was, crashed out on the floor. A brand new leaf, I'll show you it. It's just big cuts in it. And a funny thing was that Maggie was following me around, laying at my feet everywhere I went, hanging her head. Well, I don't know how, but somebody did it. Somebody did it. So anyway, I'll show you the plant, and it's in a recoup. So I'll just put her down. Maybe she'll stay in her little bed. There's your little bed. There. Okay. I'm sorry, you know, I get sidetracked very easily. So anyway, I'm going to try and get this where you can see it. So this poor plant, it has a big cut here. And if I turn it around, it has another one here. I didn't know if I should tape it. Some of the root, everything, it really took a shock. So anyway, the first orchid pots I have, and you would have to look a long way back in the videos, I didn't have pots, so a lot of the time your house paint now comes in gallon things and it's not tin, it's plastic. And Jack had drilled big holes in it, and the plants that my first orchids love these. Well, they're plastic, similar to the traffic cones. They loved them. They got roots like you wouldn't believe. They did so good, but you know, something new came along, and these I've still had. In fact, I had dendrobiums in them for a while. So I put it in this because everything was all over, and I thought, oh, I'll just put it in this for a while and I'll nurse it around. I thought about taping it. I just don't know if you have any really good ideas of something to help this out. I'm open to suggestions. So anyway, let's get this potted. What are we doing? Okay, so I'm going to put a little bit of, the bark is wet, and we got that soaking probably because I've been talking a bit, so it's probably had a good 10 minutes soak. So we'll put a bit of bark in here. It's nice and wet. Okay. And we'll see the difference of just changing the pot. Now, okay. Boop, 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 boop. Okay. Now, though, some of the roots have started to go green. Now, these are probably some of the original ones. And remember what I always say, when you change, oh, actually, this one came in very fine bark. So the media wasn't changed. So this is just some that have not, just the difference. But most of the roots are pretty good. Nothing is soggy. Now that's important. They can put up a lot of stuff, but they cannot put up with soggy. So really, I know there's some bark on here. There. The bark is still good. It's funny, a lot of the ones that are always the worst are those inside ones. I saw, I think it was Vietnamese. His orchids were beautiful. He had just leaf after leaf all coming out. Mind you, it's where they grow anyway, but still, these were being grown in pots. And he got them in moss. He picked all the moss off the outside, but that center core had a lump of moss. He never on any of them picked that off. Then he had a piece of charcoal he put in his pot, and he had bark, and then he put the center core, which still has all the icky moss on it, onto the big charcoal piece, put his bark in, and his orchids were all just magnificent. Leaves like you wouldn't believe. And I know that the humidity there is good for them, and I don't know, I thought, gee, should I try that? And I don't know, it's kind of scary, but there it is out there. I wish I should have wrote down the name of the channel. It's not in English, but I do watch a few orchid channels. One's in Mexico. I do watch them. Anybody wants to know which ones, I could always pin it for you under this video, the names of those, because I wish I could understand other languages, but sometimes just by watching them handling their pot and what they're doing, it's interesting, very interesting. So there we are. I think it's going to be way happier in its new home, and things look pretty good. This one maybe. Sometimes I'll just break them off rather than cut them with something that... So I think everything looks good. I see no sign of anything I'm not liking. So into the pot it goes. So, how do you see this? In you go to your new home. Now this one was out. We'll leave it out. I'll probably curl it around the inside of the pot. I like to plant a little high in the pot, so well, there's never any chance of anything. Most orchids die because they're just kept too wet, so that's not going to happen. Now, what I do is I put the bark in, and if I have, one of these days I'll start using charcoal again a little bit, but I just haven't found what I want. So I always just kind of shake it a bit and poke my finger, not too hard, and just let it go down. So it was high in the pot, so I like it to stay that way. Now I'm hoping this will be much happier, and that from now on when I get spikes, I get flowers, because once I took this one out the window, put it in a more humid situation, started watering it more, then it just kept flowering and flowering, and still is. But I mean, how long do you let it go? I'll be cutting that off soon. About an inch from the base and a little bit of cinnamon, and that it'll be good to go. So, you know, I like to try new pots, and if I want, I can always hang it from my pot rack in the window in the winter, or it can be on a stand. So I'm hoping when this flowers again and new spikes come out that it will be much happier, and they'll flower right from the beginning. So that being done, we can put this back in. There we go. And I wanted to, my only other species Phal is a real mini, and it's Memoria Rettig here, and she has a bud. She's going to start flowering. Usually when she starts flowering, they just come one after the other. And the others, nothing yet. Still waiting. So, I think that's about everything I wanted to talk to you about. There won't be any tours today. There will be probably a pretty good tour coming out, and I hope you're all fine. And is there someone peeking in? I don't know. Did you probably know to catch them? Okay. We're getting our exercise, washing and everything, running around the house everywhere, so it's good it's this time of year. So I'm going to do a cleanup. Leave me a comment if you want to know anything. I'll try and remember to pin a couple sites that are not in my language, but I still love to watch. And remember, you're in the driver's seat, and you can do what you want to do within reason.